Guys, we're going to talk a little bit about the NBA, the National Basketball Association. The strike is over.
No, lockout. Let's not. Don't say that.
Oh, yeah, it wasn't a strike.
Yeah, I'm sorry, lockout.
Certainly wasn't
Whatever.
a strike.
Are you glad it's over? Are you glad they're back?
I'm always glad to see the people who are the best at what they do. I'm glad to see. I mean, a lot of people downgrade the NBA. I am not one of them, obviously. But because I always like to see people who are the best at what they do perform. And that's the bottom line. I mean, I understand the complaints. They don't play hard enough. They don't play defense, blah, 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 blah. I don't care. I love watching them play.
Well, I think when you say you don't care, you care, but you live
Right.
with it. I mean, I kind of feel the same way. They are if you just look at the NBA compared to college basketball as basketball, just
Correct.
objectively as basketball, there's no comparison.
Correct.
It's a blowout. I mean, but most people don't do that.
Right.
So I mean, the NBA, flawed though it is,
Yes.
I am glad.
You know what else? The other thing is the NBA is the one league. It's more interesting off the court than it is on the court.
True.
Because there are so many guys that are just like way out there.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a very entertaining league from that standpoint.
It
too.
is.
It is. I guess I go back to when you were covering the Sixers at Franklin and Marshall College.
Right.
When I first started watching the Sixers and falling in love
Right.
with Moses, Malone, Andrew, Tony, Dr. J, Mo Cheeks, and that group of players, and then when you had the Lakers, the Celtics,
Right.
those guys now would blow away what you see for teams out there now. And I guess my frustration is, and I'm going to ask you guys this question, did they fix the problems that led to this labor dispute, and to fix what I think is a very flawed league right now, because you only have a couple elite teams, and the teams at the bottom have no chance to beat those guys.
Well, but that was at least as true in the '80s as it is now.
Was it?
Of course.
Yes,
yeah.
but
I mean, but those teams were just you couldn't put teams together as stacked as those teams were now. You couldn't do it.
No, you
because
could.
of the
I
salary
mean,
cap.
if you had Moses, Andrew, Doc, Mo Cheeks, Bobby Jones, you couldn't pay them all right now. You couldn't have.
That's
that,
what I'm
that-
saying.
That team
Yeah,
couldn't
that's
exist.
exactly what I'm
Okay,
saying.
okay.
And that was like the third best team of that era.
Yeah, correct.
True.
Incredible.
So we can never get back to that era, I guess. I mean, can we ever get back to where you have that kind of depth and talent and
No, because
quality of play?
The other part of it is now the league has expanded since then. I forget
Yeah,
how many
it
teams
is,
there were then.
it
I think
is.
it was 23, and now there's 30. So I mean,
Yeah.
I think that the pool has gotten more diluted, and and then it gets back to the whole salary cap thing. You just can't pay everybody.
So did they fix any of the problems that they had before, or is this going to just be the same thing we saw last year at this time as far as the quality of play out there?
I think it'll be pretty much the same. I think it's kind of the same league. I
They
mean,
didn't fix the problems.
Yeah.
The main thing that they did. In fact, I'll give the owners a teeny bit of credit for this. I think they tried to. I think this is one of the areas where they conceded. They wanted to make the luxury tax harsher.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to make they wanted to modify this mid-level exception more than they actually ended up doing in the final agreement. But then you don't give the owners credit because they were willing to concede those things. As long as we get back from 57% to 50% of the basketball BRI, that's really what it came down to, and that's what the Sacramentos and the San Antonios and the Clevelands are not in better shape than they were before. And to some extent, you can't collective bargain that away. I mean, that's just you got to have you got to have historically great players in the NBA, and it's hard to get them. And but to the extent that they even thought they were going to collectively bargain that away, they were wrong.
Yeah, the thing that drives me crazy about the whole lockout thing was basically the owners were asking the players to save them, the owners, from themselves.
Yeah.
It's like, to save them from signing somebody to a long-term silly contract. I can't think of a name off the top of my head, but I know there's obvious examples out there. But it just seems like, is that really supposed to be the player's job in all this?
That's right. But on the other hand, I think some of that is baked into the reality of this sport because I mean, you've got the money, you've got to spend it. I mean, who are we going to? There's nobody out. We can't get LeBron James. Right. If you're 28 of the 32, we can't get LeBron James. What are we going to do? So you give Joe Smith,
that's a good example.
Josh Smith and
Milko Darko Milovic, Minnesota gets a huge contract. I'm just going, because you had the money. It just drives me nuts. What can the Sixers do? Can this guys give me your thoughts on what they're going? Are they going to trade Iguodala before the season starts? Do you go with him?
I don't know. I mean, I wonder how much better they will be. I mean, last year they started 3-13. I've got to think that they're going to start off better. I mean, obviously they're going to start off on the road because of the ice show that's always in their arena right around Christmas. So they're going to start on the road, so they'll have that going against them. But I got to believe that they'll start off better because, Doug Collins is his second year, and, they should be used to him. Now, of course, Collins' history is also that players get tired of him after a while. I'm not sure if this is the year or next year's year. I don't know what his shelf life is exactly, but he's such a demanding, grinding guy that eventually people tire
but
of
they
him.
have not been able to talk to him at all. He's been locked
Right, well,
out.
that's
so
probably a good thing.
They had a downtime.
So he's probably making up for lost time. Like he's notorious for texting his
he's
guys all
texting-
the time.
He's texting his butt off now.
He's trying to get a new phone.
But my sense is that he's sort of acknowledged that weakness maybe and gotten a little kinder and kinder and gentler and maybe I don't know if that's going to work or not. But the Sixers, it's relatively easy in this league to get to 40, 45 wins. It's really hard to get from there to 55 or even to start thinking about the championship. So the Sixers are I think close to their ceiling in terms of what's
I would agree with that.
possible unless they can make big changes.
Absolutely agree with that, and it's hard to make a big change. I mean, the name that's out there that intrigues me, which I don't think they can get done, is Nene. He would seem like he'd fit, but I doubt that he wants to play there. I mean, you hear about Miami having interest in Nene. I don't know how they're going to fit him into their cap, but I mean, he would obviously be a great fit for them because their obvious weakness is point guard and center. So, and the other name that was thrown out there by somebody in Miami was that the Heat is going to try to engineer a trade for Steve Nash, which just boggles the mind.
Man, but see, that's the kind of stuff that you get more in the NBA than any other sport because of these colossal sea changes that you can make in your team, and it's interesting. It's interesting. The NBA's back. In a qualified way, we're happy about it.
Yes, we are.
True.